Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello, and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Austin Davidson.
Heyo.
It's Season 3, Episode 40. The Pittsburgh Steelers dropped to 1-2-1 after a very disappointing loss to the Baltimore Ravens at home on Sunday Night Football. Just a pretty dismal performance for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I can tell you in person it was pretty disappointing as well. That's the first time I've ever seen them lose in person, too. They had been 5-0 previously, so it was pretty different seeing them lose that game, and I was pretty optimistic even during the struggles of the second half, but it just never materialized. So I guess, what kind of perspective did you see on TV? Did it offer you any kind of consolation in that game, or was it just kind of like, what were your just thoughts on the game after it ended?
Well, the offense really only scored in the second quarter, and that was terrible. Then I could go on a whole rant about the defensive line, which I will, but overall defense wasn't as bad as it could have been. And then third, I don't feel good about this team at all. That's just the bottom line. This team is just a different kind of bad. It's hard to stay optimistic, and I'm not one. I am one to come to like a quick Yinzer reaction to say, oh, it's over. But just for perspective, I feel worse about this team than the 2013 team at the same point. And at this point in time, that team was 0-4 because I didn't see terrible things from that team. I knew that team could bounce back. The defense wasn't giving up 40 points a game, and they did bounce back that year. This team I find to be worse. Even though they have a better record at this point, I find this team to be worse. So those are my quick takeaways. What are yours?
Well, one thing that's definitely worse with this team is that, unlike any other Steelers team I've ever seen, they just come out of the gate slow. And it's been every game where they've just, even with the exception of the Browns game, which they ended up leading 7-0, they haven't gotten off to good starts. They've been down in the last 3 games at Heinz Field. They've been down 21-0, 21-0, and now 14-0. And it's like the first 2 drives of the game, the Steelers go backwards again, and then you give the Ravens the ball. They score a touchdown on their opening drive. It's just all around just awful. And it really, you aren't doing yourself any favors when you go down that early. It makes it really hard to win football games when you do that. So obviously at 1-2-1, it's time to hit the panic button. I don't know what was going on offense, but 2 weeks in a row, 0 second half points, that's a problem. That's something that the Steelers offense should not be, we shouldn't be talking about them like that. As odd as it sounds, this was kind of an improvement for the defense. They were very lucky they didn't give up more points, but they still made a few nice plays and didn't give up as many splash plays as they did the last 2 weeks. But like 14-play drives also can't happen either. Now that I've gone through the TV broadcast, it didn't make me feel better about what I saw. Some things just seemed worse, and I was not looking forward to going through the tape. And I was not happy about going through it anyways. So injury report from the game. Darius Hayward-Bay had an ankle injury on that near-blocked punt that he had. Vince Williams had a hamstring injury late in the game. And Nat Burray has a torn pec muscle and was placed on IR. So the resulting moves from that, the Steelers signed cornerback Brian Allen from their practice squad, and they signed... Who did they sign? They signed a former Packers cornerback. Do you remember his name?
Herb Waters, or it's either Herb or Herb. I don't know. I think it's Herb. Herb Waters.
All right. So he has now taken Brian Allen's place on the practice squad. Any chance Allen plays this week?
I actually think so. I think that he might not be inactive for this one. It really depends. It depends. They're either activating Marcus Allen or Brian Allen. Brian Allen, in my opinion. Sorry, I got confused because they're both last name Allen. I thought I messed that up. It depends on which one is active and which one is inactive. But I think because they don't have hope in Artie Burns or Cody Sensabaugh, they don't think they're exactly the answer. Maybe they'll switch in Brian Allen for a little bit just to see. I mean, Brian Allen didn't look good in the preseason, but hey, maybe he'll just try it out for a few snaps. We'll see.
All right. This was a game that neither of us really got anything close with our bold predictions, but our X factors were kind of quiet too. You want to take a recap of yours?
Yeah, neither of my X Factors did anything really. There were James Conner and TJ Watt, and yeah, both were less than lackluster. As for my bold prediction, I was far off. I predicted crazy numbers from Ron Hayward and was severely disappointed by that. Then I predicted 100 yards and a touchdown for Washington. Well, he only got 10 yards. Then my weird prediction was that no tight ends or running backs would get touchdowns, and Alex Collins got probably the easiest touchdown of the year so far. So how did your X Factors and bold predictions work out?
My X factors were kind of a meh across the board. Antonio Brown had 5 catches for 62 yards at halftime, which looked good, but then he didn't catch another ball. Vince Williams, on the other hand, was all right, but not great. He left with an injury, and my bold predictions were pretty far off. I mean, Antonio Brown was headed for a relatively big game, but didn't get there, obviously, and then Williams left the game injured, but wasn't making as much of an impact either, so I kind of missed on mine as well. All right, Austin, for a team that was supposed to never have any problems scoring points in this year with Ben Roethlisberger and Randy Fichtner at the helm, the last 2 weeks have kind of been a struggle for them. What is going on here? Like, what happened?
It really raises a lot of questions. Like, what is this? What is this offense that can literally only be successful for a half? It's beyond disappointing. I don't know what to blame. There's just so many factors that could be adding into this. Like, is the offense struggling because opposing defenses know the deep ball isn't there, so they don't really have to take it away? Is it because in the past 3 games there has been no run game? It's been very one-dimensional. Is it because of poor coaching? What is it? I just don't understand, because this team is so talented on paper. This should not be a problem in any case scenario when you got 3 great receivers, well, at least 2 proven ones. Then you got a really solid set of tight ends. We've seen great things from both of them in the past few weeks. Now the line is slowing down, in my opinion, but they're definitely still in the top half of the league. So what's the issue? I'm just mad. We come into the season expecting a Super Bowl contender, and so far we got an 8-7-1 team. Maybe. It all starts with the quarterback, and Ben just looks bad out there in 3/4 of the quarters. His stat line isn't the worst, but he missed so many throws in the second half, and that interception at the end of the game was absolutely terrible. The line gave him all the time in the world, and he still made the worst decision possible. Without a doubt, though, his misses were the worst. He missed Antonio Brown at least 3 times. One was definitely a smart one when Brown was draped in coverage with 2 defenders. So it might have been purposely, but the other 2 I saw were terrible. One time it looked like Ben misfired and just absolutely rocketed a ball for no reason. And then the other one he threw behind him. If he just got it in front of him, it would have been a huge gain. But not only that, Antonio Brown stopped that from being an interception. That would have been another interception on Ben's stat line if Antonio Brown didn't extend his hand all the way back as far as he could and stop it from going into Anthony Levine's hand. But he needs to be better. But he did have some moments of being good in this one. Almost all those times involved Juju. That almost touchdown throw he had was put on the money. Brandon Carr just played it well. It was one of the only times I disagreed with Steelers Depot. He said Juju has to catch that and spent like an entire day arguing that was Juju's fault and he should have came down with that. And I don't know what he saw, but I saw Brandon Carr punch that ball basically perfectly. I don't know. I don't really put a lot of blame on Juju for that. I do think he should have came down with it, but I feel like Brandon Carr also played that really well. But you want to know something disgusting, though? Juju was targeted 11 times, and he only came down with 4 of them. Not all of them were catchable, but he dropped a wide-open pass, and that was absolutely terrible on his part. I've noticed that he does that a lot, too. Usually we'll have one game where he drops an easy catch. It's just weird. It's a weird little thing that happens. I think maybe he just starts looking upfield or something, but I don't really know. That one was on the sideline, so it wasn't like he was looking upfield. He just dropped it. But Brown was also targeted 11 times, and he came down with 5. But like I said, I point out 3 times where Roethlisberger was just terrible. 4 if you include the interception the last of the game. So, like, Antonio Brown's only 5 out of 11 isn't as bad. It's more like 5 out of 7, so that's not really terrible. After him, I really wanted more out of James Washington, but Ryan Switzer was actually huge in this game. He didn't get a lot of huge games, but he was used to bail a lot of Switzer out, and he actually caught every single one of his targets, all 7 of them. And what's even more impressive about that is he only played 21 snaps. He caught a pass on a third of his snaps, so that's pretty impressive. Now, since we're talking about receiving, I'll throw the tight ends in here as well. Starting with James, he only had 1 catch, but he made it count. It got the Steelers out of their own end zone following the Alex Collins fumble. I respect his attempt at trying to hurt those guys. It was really funny to watch, but still. Then for Vance, he would have had another great day had it not been that he fumbled. That fumble was so bad for him right in the beginning, and it really hurt the Steelers right from the get-go. But he did make it up later in the game by dragging people on a huge 33-yard gain. He also caught all 5 of his targets as well, so it just makes you question further why he wasn't targeted once at all in the second half. For the offensive line, their run blocking is terrible. That's basically it. It's like they don't want James Conner to succeed because they open no holes for him whatsoever. On the other side, though, they are still great at pass blocking. They only gave up 1 sack and 2 quarterback hits, which is really, really good, especially when the Ravens are a solid pass rushing unit. Finally, let's talk about James Conner. I wish the offensive line would open up holes for him, but I also want to see him make his own opportunities. He's got to be at least partially responsible for the bad rushing yards per carry. I just want to see him doing more. I know for a fact, though, it would help him if Nix was out there, but Randy just seems to refuse to use Nix, which is really annoying. Back to Conner, though. Conner's pass blocking is fantastic to me at this point. He really took a guy on by himself on the big completion to Jesse James, and that's important because if he can't take that one guy, it's likely a safety. Then as pass catcher, he continued to be great, getting a 2-point conversion and a nice 10-yard gain. So, I mean, he continues to be successful through the air, just hasn't gotten going on the ground since week 1. But, what did you see from the offense in this one? You got to watch it firsthand. So, what did you see?
Well, it was worse in person than it was. Oh man, it was worse in person than it was on the TV broadcast, and it was pretty bad on the broadcast. So, my biggest issue with this team has been their slow starts, and the offense has been a huge part of that. So on the first drive of the game, the Steelers go 3 and out. Second down, Roethlisberger misfires. He throws a little hitch route to Antonio Brown, probably like 4 or 5 yards, and he spikes it at his feet. That's about as easy of a throw as he's ever going to have, and that was about as poorly placed a throw as you could make it. It's one thing if you throw it, just past his arms or it's a little behind him, but he basically threw it at his feet. I don't know what that was, but that was disgusting. James Conner actually thought on that play, or the third down play, has to be a little more aggressive in pass protection on the third down. I actually thought he did a good job, but I'm not sure if he wasn't aggressive enough because the blitzer got a little upfield on him, and I'm not sure if that made Roethlisberger throw the ball when he did, but I think he threw it maybe a little early. McDonald caught it and then obviously gave up the ball, and that was a huge turning point at that point in the game, and that just hammered home another horrible start for the offense. From what I see, James Conner is getting absolutely no help whatsoever in the ground game. He's struggling just to make it back to the line of scrimmage most of the time. The second drive, I don't know if you remember this, but the third down and 20, they were down 14, and it was a quick screen to Conner. What did you think about that play call?
I don't remember it, actually. I actually really don't. I don't remember it. It didn't stick out in my head. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Second down, I'll pull up the play-by-play here for you, but all right. So Conner to left guard for 1 yard, Smith-Schuster for holding, Roethlisberger incomplete short right to James Washington, James Conner left end pushed out of bounds for 2 yards, and then a 1 yard screen pass on a 3rd and 18 from the 13-yard line, down by 14 at that point. This is the second drive of the game. I have a huge problem with that play call. You're essentially giving up on the drive, and after you've had nothing the first 2 drives, and the Ravens have scored touchdowns on your first 2 drives, you have a legitimate chance, especially that deep in your own territory, to go down 21-0. You have to call something more aggressive there. That was just stupid, and they're very lucky it wasn't 21-0 there. Roethlisberger didn't make good decisions all day, but that was also evident early in this game. I thought his best throw of the night was the long one to Juju Smith-Schuster early in the game over a defender in the hole. That was a superb throw. Ryan Switzer's quickly become a safety valve for Roethlisberger, for better or for worse, and while I think he's played well and he does what he does effectively, I think the Steelers may utilize him a little too often, or rather Roethlisberger involves him a little too much. There were several plays in the stands that I remember where Switzer was used on a quick out or a quick throw when he had one-on-one coverage with Antonio Brown. I don't know why he's not taking those chances. I feel like he just wasn't throwing intermediate passes a lot in this game, and he didn't want to take chances. A lot of his throws were short, and when he did throw deep, they were terrible decisions or they were out of bounds again. I just didn't understand it. Once again, the first 2 drives in this game were a waste of time for the offense. Randy Fichtner with another terrible script to start the game. I wanted to kind of split it down the middle between you and Steelers Depot on the Brandon Carr, Juju Smith-Schuster touchdown pass breakup play. Carr absolutely made a big play there, but I do believe Juju may not necessarily should come down with it, but the ball goes through to his helmet. If he catches it kind of with his hands instead, I think there's a better chance if he gets a good grip on it there that he might hold on to it. I'm not saying he's definitely going to hold on to it because Carr did make a great play, but I think he could have done a little bit better, so I'm going to try to kind of split the difference between you two guys there. I believe that had that been someone like James Washington, he might have come down with that, or Antonio Brown, but I don't know. I have a hard time going too far to either side on that one. The deep ball is still not there for Roethlisberger, as I said. Jesse James had a huge catch when the Steelers were on the 1-yard line. You were talking about the one where he hurdled the guy. James Conner, I thought, made the best play of his day right there. He had a one-on-one block. I forget with who it was. Might have been a defensive back, but it was a play fake, and then Conner was one-on-one in space with Roethlisberger in the end zone behind him, and he comes up with a huge block, giving Roethlisberger just enough time there. He's made nice strides as a pass blocker. James Washington, you can just see he has strong hands when he gets the ball in his hands. He just snatches the ball. It's kind of cool to see. McDonald on that 33-yard catch and run, he is a bull, and he's so physical when he has the ball in his hands. I love that he's been such a big part of the offense the last couple plays. Alejandro Villanueva had a rough night. He got beaten by Terrell Suggs on a few plays, including a play where he was beaten by Terrell Suggs on the inside, which is a huge no-no for the offensive line. 3rd and 3, I forgot the situation. I think this might have been before the first field goal. Yeah. Oh, no, this was before the second field goal. So 14-3, it's 3rd and 3 at the Ravens' 20-yard line. This play is a microcosm of the Steelers' season. Roethlisberger goes deep to Antonio Brown, who's covered well, and the safety's coming up over the top, so he would have been there to make a play on the ball, and Roethlisberger fires the ball out of bounds in the end zone. So it might as well have been in the 3rd row anyways, so he just, not even a catchable ball. So that was just, first of all, Brown is double covered, and second of all, it's not even a catchable ball, so a waste of a down there too. I don't know, the screen game is kind of intriguing to me, Austin. I feel like screens are either really big plays for this team or they're losses. Do you feel like that's the case as well?
I don't know. I feel like screens have worked out pretty well, especially when they use like Vance McDonald on the screens. Like they used that once for a 10-yard gain in this, or it was, I think it was 12, not 10. I don't know. I feel like most of the screens work out pretty well.
I know the tight end screens have worked well, but I feel like the outside bubble screens haven't. I feel, again, I said this earlier, but I feel like a lot of these passes were short, conservative curls and outs and stuff like that. There was one play where Tavon Young nearly had an interception where every receiver, all 5 people on the route, ran a short curl. That's the kind of thing you run on a 3rd and 1 or something like that, or when you're on the goal line. That's not something you run in that situation. The Ravens had it covered perfectly, and Roethlisberger had nothing to do. So, of course, he threw it, and it nearly got picked off. That was just terrible. I am giving Vance McDonald, by the way, the nickname Vanimal, because that 33-yard catch and run is something that was just ridiculous. I don't know if I'm more impressed by that or the stiff arm, because he ran over 2 people on that play. But I thought that was a fantastic play. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah. He's just an animal. I think the animal fits him very well.
Roethlisberger's other great throw, as you mentioned before, was the end zone touchdown pass to Brown. It looked just like they always had been. It was like a perfect pass and a perfect catch. The 2-point conversion play was actually the exact same play they ran against the Chiefs to Connor, except on the other side, and both times it's worked this year. At this point, when the Steelers tied the game, I thought they were going to win. And then the second half started. I didn't hate the way the first 2 plays went. I didn't hate that the Steelers ran the ball to start the second half. They had 2 carries for 7 yards total, so it's 3rd and 3. What I absolutely did hate was the 3rd down play call. How in the world do you call a bubble screen behind the line of scrimmage when the defense is in press coverage, mind you? That defies logic on every level. If you're going to make such a stupid decision in the first place, please just run the ball instead. Even if that bubble screen had worked, I probably would not have been very happy with it. It seemed like an unnecessary risk, and it's clear the Ravens were wise to it, and Terrell Suggs blew up the play and forced a bad throw. That's a horrible play call. In my mind, the worst of the night. It's bad when I can say that I knew what was about to come on that play, and it's worse when the defender knows what's going to happen too. Because obviously he blew it up, and if Roethlisberger threw it like he would have normally thrown it, you're talking about a pick 6 possibly. So that was just terrible. Antonio Brown had 0 catches in the first or second half, and I can tell you why that happened. It's because Ben Roethlisberger was awful. He misfired on so many passes I lost track in this game. In the stands, my mom and I actually had a lengthy conversation during the game as to whether or not it was just miscommunication issues or something, because the ball was that bad coming out of his hand sometimes. Watching the TV replay confirms that most of the time the ball was just off target. He was just not anywhere close to the receiver, and I don't understand why he's so streaky with this stuff sometimes. Some people don't care about balance in the NFL, but I think at this point in time, especially when you're playing your biggest rival and you pride yourself on being physical, running only 10 designed running plays is a problem for me, especially when you haven't had a good running game since the first game of the year. I don't know, the offense left me with a bad taste in my mouth, and the interception to, I forget his name, the interception to end the game was just, first of all, it was a horrible decision, and he was throwing flat-footed, which is like a big no-no for quarterbacks too. So throwing flat-footed over the middle in that situation was terrible, and it sealed the game. It was the perfect ending to the imperfect game. And Villanueva had a rough day, as I mentioned before. He got beaten for another sack as well in this one. So not a good day for the offense, but maybe the defense found some slight improvements, or was it just bad in a different way?
I don't think I'm ever going to be happy with the defense this season. It's just, what happens to the Steelers not living in their fears? They always say they don't. The coaches say they don't, but they almost always do. And it's just a straight-up lie at this point. I want them to stop saying it because it is a straight-up lie. This game is an example. They rushed 3 a lot in this game because they were scared of getting gassed through the air. And maybe that's fair because they have been getting gassed in the air. But sacrificing pass rush for more coverage isn't going to fix anything. It's quite literally taking a problem and pushing it somewhere else. But maybe they just have too much faith in Cameron Hayward and Tuitt. Hayward is severely disappointing me. He's supposed to be elite. But Tuitt has quite literally pissed me off at this point. I'm about done watching him play football because it's just, I don't know why it gets me so much, but this statistic might be a little old because I found it off of Twitter, but he's the 75th highest paid athlete in all of sports. This probably came from when he just got his extension, so I'm guessing he's now close to 128th, 130th, around there now, but that doesn't change anything for me. I would find it hard to argue he's top 75 in the NFL right now. And right now, I'm pulling for him to be cut after the season. He's a gigantic waste of money, in my opinion. The best he could do is cause pressure, and he's not even doing that this year. His one thing that he was good at is not happened yet this year. I was already not sold on him last year, but now I'm completely over him. If the Steelers keep him this offseason, I'm going to be furious. The only way I'll be okay with that is if he takes a massive pay cut, which likely won't happen, because you have to realize here, this man is making $12 million a year. That is top cornerback money. $12 million a year, you get a top quarterback for that. Like, I think $14 million is the top paid right now, 14.5, something like that. That is so close to that number. Defensive line isn't even usually that expensive. Like, it's just he's being paid so much because he looked promising. And the Steelers thought they were getting a deal, and it's not working out. The Steelers need to take this money and invest it somewhere else, like a really good quarterback. That's all I'm saying. But I'm not done with Tua yet. I just want to point out that going forward, the Steelers could literally make Tyson Alualu the starter, and it would probably be better. So they wouldn't even have to bring a defensive end in or draft one. They could literally just roll with Tyson Alualu as the starter. Because listen to this. Last year, Tua started 12 games, and Alualu started 5. And Alu had both more tackles and more sacks in 5 starts. Sure, Alualu played all games, and starts only say when he was the first person in. But the only thing Tua had over him is that Tua had forced a fumble and had one more pass defense than Alualu. But if you let Alualu start 12 games, I 100% believe his stats will blow Tua's stats out of the water. So we can all get mad at Bud Dupree and Artie Burns for looking bad at times. Looking bad most of the time, actually, for Artie Burns. But at least they are not being paid around $12 million a year to look bad. The Tua thing, because of how much he's paid, is aggravating. But I had to get that out because I feel like Tua hasn't gotten a flash in the service. He deserves to get roasted like that because he needs to be better for what he's paid. Only after last week have I started seeing articles about him and how he needs to improve. It's ridiculous to me. And now I'm glad I got that out because I wanted to go off about him after this game. But it's not just him, though. The whole defensive line needs to improve. Like I said, Hayward isn't doing much at all either. I'm hoping he gets started soon because he's better than 2 solo tackles and 3 assisted tackles. Steelers need more from their supposed elite pass rusher. Hargrave actually got a sack in this one, but I couldn't even be happy about it. It wasn't impressive to me. You put any guy there and Joe Flacco steps into them. It could have been Dan McCullers. I literally credit Joe Flacco more with his own sack because he had all the time in the world and decided to step into Javon Hargrave. He didn't even have to step up. He was fine. But it was a coverage sack that took forever to happen. That's it. Now, let's go to the other pass rushers, the linebackers. If you go into your fridge right now and look in your milk carton, there's probably T.J. Watt's face on it because he's missing. I don't know where he is. How do you go from 3 sacks and a blocked field goal week 1 to nothing in the next 3 weeks? 4 tackles. Was one of those being assisted? No tackles for a loss? What? That's it? Oh, where's the pass rush you put up against the Browns? I just struggle to understand. Bud Dupree is literally doing better in the pass rush department. How is that even possible? Dupree still doesn't get that many tackles. That 1 sack was actually it. So that's a problem too, but at least he's getting a sack. At least he's making a disruptive play. But let's move on to the other linebackers before I blow an artery or a vein in my head. Vince Williams and John Bostic. Bostic wasn't disruptive in this one, but he did tie the lead for tackles with his co-starter, Williams, and also had half a tackle for a loss. Williams had 4 solo tackles and 5 assisted tackles, but man, through 4 weeks, I want more from him too. I want some tackles for a loss, a sack, a forced fumble, an interception, just something. He did get a lot of tackles in this game, so I can't take that away from him, but he hasn't been disruptive at all this year. It's disappointing after he had so many sacks last year. I'm just hoping for him to get going in that department sooner, at least try and do something, force a fumble, all the stuff I listed. He has the tackles to be good. Like the 9 tackles was very good for me. I wish he did a little bit more in the disruptive department. But now let's finish up with defensive backs, who I didn't completely hate this week. I mean, sure, Edmonds and Nat Burr looked terrible. On that touchdown given up, where Brown literally beat Joe Hayden and Cameron Sutton at the same time, was absolutely disgusting to watch. And had Joe Flacco not misfired, the Ravens would have had another long touchdown. I believe it was against Joe Hayden. I forgot to write it down. But there were some good things in this one, at least better than what we've seen. Joe Hayden only got 1 pass defense credited, but he stopped another pass from being completed in the end zone, bailing out Terrell Edmonds. Then the Ravens almost went up 21-0 on the Steelers, which would have been a familiar number. But Sean Davis and Cody Sensabaugh goal line heroics of forcing a fumble, and then Edmonds recovering it stopped that from happening. He even went to points on that following offensive drive. in terms of tackling this one, I was happy with the defensive backs in that department as well. Edmonds and Hayden had 7 tackles each, and then Sean Davis and Cody Sensible had 6 and 5 tackles respectively. One of Sensible's was actually really good. He's the sole reason Lamar Jackson didn't run for first down on one of his runs of the game. I was in touch with him coming down to make that stop all by himself. Then to talk about Artie, he actually didn't get work this game. I felt like he did okay, which is a step in the right direction for him. I feel like I didn't have many complaints about Artie coming into this game. But I don't know if you were as pissed off about the defense as I was, but what did you think of the defense in this game?
Well, I'm going to start with the same place I started with the offense. And, well, they started about as poorly as the offense could have as well. A poor, the first play of the game, poor rush defense, poor containment, poor gap assignments there, and, a 9-10 yard gain. The first third down of the game, no pressure again. Outside linebackers did a poor job. More missed tackles on the opening drive. Cam Sutton had a missed tackle on a 3rd and 2. And then the first touchdown, Joe Hayden and Cameron Sutton were beat deep. It looked like cover 3 at first, meaning Sutton did the wrong thing and Hayden just didn't get it done. So Brown got way behind them. It looked a lot closer in person than on TV. On TV, it was clear John Brown was way out in front of them. 8-play, 75-yard drive and 6 points. Well, 7 points, really, but that's too easy. I feel like the Steelers continue to use zone defense too often right now. If you're going to sit back and just play zone without blitzing, you have to be prepared to switch to man coverage every now and then. The Steelers were just being way too predictable, and Joe Flacco tore them up. There was way too much running room, especially early on. The second touchdown for the Ravens, that was the one to Alex Collins. Everything on that play was played perfectly, except, of course, for Alex Collins, who was wide open. Very, very poor job by TJ Watt there. I actually think John Bostic has been the best Steelers player on defense this year. He was kind of quiet in this game, but he's been solid again. The Ravens almost had a 3rd touchdown on a 3rd and 8, the one you're talking about, Austin, where he was wide open running down the sideline, but Flacco just missed him. That was Joe Hayden, so that would have been really bad for Hayden if he got beaten again. That long 71-yard pass play to John Brown behind Terrell Edmonds, that play makes me absolutely livid because on the play, Austin, I don't know if you saw, but that's a max protection play. There's 2 guys out on the route. There's one dude doing like an intermediate curl like 10 yards out, and then there's John Brown running a long vertical, and it's like he's the only guy back there, and Edmonds can't let Brown get behind him like that. That's absolutely inexcusable and embarrassing, too. Luckily, he was bailed out, as you mentioned, by Sean Davis and Cody Sensible holding up Alex Collins before Davis ripped the ball out of his hands, and Edmonds obviously was able to fall on the ball. Then we started to see good coverage from the secondary later on. Cam Sutton had good coverage on Willie Snead, but a non-existent pass rush meant that Flacco had plenty of time to get the ball to his receivers. It was at this point we stopped seeing blitzes. We only saw 4-man pass rushes, and sometimes we'd see stunting, but most of the time it was 3- and 4-man straight up. We didn't see a lot, and this was when Flacco really started to kind of go from the air raid, the air attack going over the top, to kind of a more controlled dink and dunk offense that worked as well. Bud Dupree picked up another sack on a stunt play. That's what he does best, and you may not like it, but he's effective with it. And he didn't light up the stat sheet, but I thought that Dupree was disruptive and had another solid game. Vince Williams had a big tackle on a 3rd and 1 with under a minute to go in the first half. The pass rush was just awful. I really can't say much other than they just really... It's unfortunate because the coverage seemed to patch things up in the second half, and then the pass rush just didn't help them out, and it didn't matter. So, of course, when the secondary finally gets some things going for itself, the pass rush disappears completely. The best pass rushes of the night came when, again, Butler uses stunts. We've talked about this before, that's the one thing he's really good at. They need to keep doing that, but instead go away from it from time to time. Cody Sensible had a nice tackle on Lamar Jackson on a 3rd and short. For whatever reason, Mike Tomlin challenged that play. I really couldn't see what was going on because I was far away from one of the scoreboards, and the other one I didn't really have a great angle on it. So, Austin, you remember the 3rd and 1 run with Jackson, and he ended up picking it up, but Mike Tomlin challenged it. I had no idea if that was a good challenge or not. Was that a good challenge in your opinion?
Oh, no, that was a terrible challenge. As soon, I think at the same time on Twitter, everyone was like, don't challenge that. What are you doing? Because the problem is they challenge things that are inconclusive. I, first of all, thought he got it regardless. But, like, the ball, it's hard to turn it around when you can't see the ball. Like, there's a bunch of guys swarmed around it. It's just a waste of a challenge, even if you're right. Even if you're short by, like, 3 inches, they can't see that. It has to be conclusive evidence. It was a bad challenge, and I thought he got it anyway. I don't know why he wasted the challenge on that personally.
All right. Thank you for clearing that up. Joe Hayden, as you mentioned, had 2 terrific plays on deep balls thrown into the end zone. Ravens 3rd down and 10 conversion. Good coverage, but absolutely no pressure. He had plenty of time to sit back there and throw the ball. Javon Hargrave, think about this for a second. Javon Hargrave leads the defensive line in sacks, and obviously he's not on the field in passing situations most of the time. What is your reaction to that?
I think I already did it well. I don't think I could yell at Tuitt and Hayward enough. Like, they need to get going. I should give more to Hayward because Hayward's paid a lot too. But it's just been Hayward hasn't been bad for a whole year. Tuitt, in my opinion, because of only getting pressure, has been bad for over a year. And that's in my opinion. I mean, some people value pressure a lot more. I value sacks. I value tackles and sacks. But it's just terrible on both their parts. They should both be ashamed at this moment. Cameron Hayward and Stephon Tuitt should be ashamed that they're not doing better on the passers department. That a guy that doesn't come in that often has got more sacks than them. Just upsetting, honestly.
And it's really frustrating because here was a game, I know the Ravens left plays out on the field, but I felt like the second half they held things under control. They only gave up 9 points. I mean, or wait, was it 4 field goals? They gave up 12 points, right? Yeah, it was 12. It was 14-14 at halftime. So they gave up 4 field goals in the second half. That's not great, but you think about it, they kept the Steelers in the game. They did their part in the second half. And you think about it, they were on the field for the entire half. The offense didn't help them at all. So, I mean, that's just it's a shame when they finally do something that you almost don't expect them to do, and the offense just craps the bed. Also, another 12 men on the field penalty, and almost a second one in this game. So that's what, 4 and 4 weeks?
4 and 5 weeks. 3 and 4 weeks. I'm sorry, 3 and 4 weeks.
3 and 4 weeks and nearly a fourth. Also, I don't get that. There was a replay that came out showing that it's kind of Keith Butler. It looks like it's Keith Butler's responsibility because he's the signal caller, which means he's in charge of personnel. So that means he's in charge of substitution. So if you want to point a finger now, point the finger at Keith Butler for that. And, of course, one of those penalties changes a 3rd and 10 into a 3rd and 5, and, of course, they convert. I also felt like, I know you were going to get to this, but I felt like the officiating was not good in this game. There were several instances where the officiating was bad, and we'll get to that in a minute, but I just wanted to mention that first before we get into special teams, because if there was a bright spot, it was on special teams, was it not?
Yeah. Rosie Nix got a kick return in this one and went for 12 yards. It actually made me laugh seeing it, but it was efficient. Then Ryan Switzer had a nice 35-yard kick return as well in this one. No big punt return for him in this one, but maybe soon. Boswell hopefully got his confidence back in this one. He hit both his field goals, which were both under 40 yards, so hopefully that will help him. And Barry did okay in this one. He only got one of his punts inside the 20, but he punted for an okay average of 41.2. Obviously not good still, but he did better than he has been doing. Finally, I thought the coverage teams did really well in this one. They only allowed 1 4-yard punt return, and on the 3 kick returns that Tim White had, He averaged 19 yards per return, and the farthest he got was to the 23. So for me, if you never have a punt that makes it back, if you never have a kick return that makes it back for the 25, it's successful coverage for me. So I think that they did well in this one. Do you have anything to add about special teams?
Just wanted to mention that Darius Hayward-Bay would have had a blocked punt if he wasn't held on one of those punts. That's a rare instance where that's actually a good penalty. It's a shame he was hurt on that play. That's about it. All right. Let's get into our awards section for this week. All right, so the big stop of the week, pretty simple for me. The goal line fumble forced by Sean Davis and recovered by Terrell Edmonds. That was a big play. It kind of jump-started the Steelers' offense. They got their first points of the game after that and eventually tied the game. It didn't mean much at the end of the game, but it kind of got the Steelers back into it. Who is the stronger than Steel player of the week?
I was actually sort of stuck this week. I didn't feel like anyone really had a standout game that separated them from the pack. But ultimately, for his 5 catches for 62 yards and the touchdown, Antonio Brown is stronger than Steel player of the week. It didn't feel like super deserving, but like there's just no one that really played amazingly. No one that I thought was like, okay, they definitely need that. But going to the stronger than Steel player of the game, let's work this out now. Antonio Brown obviously had a nice touchdown with Robert replacing it perfectly. But that catch and run by the Vanimal was really nice. 33 yards. He dragged like 3 people. He almost broke it away too. So what are you thinking?
I'm personally a fan of the play by the Vanimal, Vance McDonald himself, but that's just my personal opinion. I mean, it was a fantastic catch by Antonio Brown as well.
I'm going to agree with you. I think the catch on the run by the Vanimal is the stronger than Steel play of the game. I think that one was a little bit better because the Antonio Brown touchdown was a little bit pedestrian. So I agree with you. But that really wraps up our recap. Quickly, before we move on to the positional grades, I wanted to talk about TSC. TSCshop.com provides the best Steelers, Pirates, and Penguins memorabilia you could get. It's got signed stuff. I bought like 4 things from them. I was signed Antonio Brown and David DeCascio jersey in my room from them. They're a really good site. You should check them out.
All right, let's move into positional grades. I have a feeling it's not going to be very good for all those involved. Let's start, obviously, with the quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger. What's your grade?
I'm going to give him a C-. Roethlisberger needs to get better with all the weapons and protections he has. It's simple as that. He had a good second quarter, and that was it. I should almost probably give him a lower grade, but I'll stick with C-. What grade do you give him?
I gave him a D-. The long throw to Juju and the touchdown to Antonio Brown saves this from being an F. Since halftime of the Buccaneers game, he's been bad, and the second half this week was one of, if not the worst half of football he's ever played, in my opinion. He misplaced a ton of balls, and he made terrible decisions. There were guys that were wide open or guys one-on-one coverage that he just missed. It was just not a good day for him at all. Running backs, I gave a C. Look, it would help if the running backs got any help at all on the ground. For the last 3 weeks, they've basically been facing turnstiles on the line, and they're fighting to get any and every yard on the ground that they have. It doesn't help when you get called 10 designed running plays a game. That's not good enough either. James Conner is still an improving pass-catching target and has evolved nicely there and as a pass blocker as well. Go right ahead. What's your grade?
I'm going to give him a C-. The ground game was abysmal, and yeah, it's not all Connor's fault, but he needs to create some more opportunities, in my opinion. So moving on to wide receivers, what did you give the wide receivers?
I gave him a B. It's hard to knock these guys when their quarterback was wildly inaccurate. Juju had 2 drops on the stat sheet, and he wasn't great, but they weren't the easiest catches in the world either, so I'm not going to knock him too much for it, so a B is my grade.
I'm going to agree with you. I give him a B there, too. There was no crazy game from anyone, but Ben wasn't playing very well, so I couldn't really knock them much further, especially Ryan Switzer impressing me. So I gave him a B. Moving on to tight ends, though, what was their grade?
I gave them a B as well. Jesse James had 1 big catch and run. Vance McDonald was pretty solid as a receiver again as well. but I can guarantee you he wants a mulligan on that fumble. Otherwise, this would be an A.
Yep, that's exactly why I gave them a B-. That fumble from Vance really hurt. It basically put the Steelers down 14-0. But that doesn't stop me from still giving them a B- when they caught every single one of their targets in this game. So that's redeeming. Obviously, Vanimal had his huge play. But moving on to offensive line, I give them a C+. The average grade for a great pass blocking unit and a bad run blocking is what the best I could come up with. So C+ for them. What did you give them?
Normally, I'd go that route too, but I'm not as impressed with their pass protection this week. Just because I heard that Ben Roethlisberger, on average, had the ball from snap to throw less than any quarterback this week. I think it was something like 2.25 seconds from snap to throw. So that means he was getting the ball out. It's almost impossible to sack somebody that quickly. So I wasn't super impressed anyways. And their run blocking is at an all-time horrible low right now. Even when the offensive line wasn't good, they were running the ball better than they are right now. It's really hurting this offense. On the other side of the line, the defensive line really struggled. I gave them a D-. They're supposed to be making plays, and they quite simply aren't. I mentioned already, Javon Hargrave leads this position group in sacks, and it should not be that way whatsoever.
I gave them an F. This unit is severely underperforming what they are paid. I was really pissed off after this performance, if you couldn't tell. So, F. For linebackers, what did you give them?
I gave them a C-. TJ Watt had a rough game, and Vince Williams was average at best. I felt like John Bostic and Bud Dupree were a little more noticeable, but you still need more from these guys consistently, so C-.
I'm going to agree with you on the C-. Dupree got a sack, and Vince Williams and Bostic combined for a lot of tackles. But we're still searching for TJ Watt and for Williams to start being more disruptive like he was last year. But going to the defensive backs, what did you give them?
I'm also going to give them a C- here. The second half, they were a lot better for the most part, but the first half was a struggle again. Joe Flacco took advantage deep, and the secondary gave up some huge gains. But at least it wasn't due to miscommunications this time, right? Right? Well, it's still terrible, so C-.
Again, I'm going to follow you on this one as well. C- all across the board. I feel like I'm being nice here, though, but that forced fumble and fumble recovery were huge, and I liked what I saw tackle-wise, so I'm going to stick with C-. Then we're going to move on to specialists. Specialists, what did you give them?
I gave them a B+. I felt like it was a pretty good day. Chris Boswell was perfect on 2 kicks, and the coverage units were solid. The return game wasn't bad either. And Jordan Berry, while kind of average at best, you mentioned he's better than he had been at the start of the season. I still wish we had Matt Weil, but he has improved the last 2 weeks, and that's okay with me as long as he keeps getting better. I can live with someone that's not great, but as long as he's not hurting the team, I'm okay with that. So I think a B+ is a good grade for the specialists.
I'm going to go with a B. Barry did okay. Boswell hit both of his short field goals. A pretty pedestrian performance, but a good one nonetheless. So, give him a B. Finally, we got coaching. What grade did you give coaching?
Give me an F. Another week. Another slow start. Another 2 useless drives to open the game on offense with only 10 designed rushing plays against your biggest rival, who you quote-unquote always try to out-physical. Another too many men on the field penalty, and nearly a second one as well. Another second-half disaster for the offense, where the offense completely disappears. All of these guys deserve heat for their performance, especially at home, in prime time against your biggest rival, when you haven't won at home in the last now 3 games at home. That's just disgraceful. So an F for the coaches.
I'm going to go with a C-. Penalties came back down, but Steelers are living in their fear on defense, and Randy rushed on the 2nd and 20. And that basically sums up how the offense was for most of the day. So C- for me.
All right. It's going to be a little hard this week to find winners, but there's got to be a couple, right? So who are the winners on offense and defense from this game?
For offense, it was Ryan Switzer. Like I said, he didn't have a lot of production in terms of yardage, but he caught all 7 of his targets and only 21 snaps played, so I was pretty happy with him. Then on defense, it was Cody Sensible. I feel like he made a lot of good tackles in this one. I also felt like he wasn't a detriment in coverage in this game specifically, so it sort of surprised me. And that play where he took down Lamar Jackson was probably the best I've ever seen from him, to be honest with you. Who are your winners on offense and defense?
This should probably tell you how bad I thought the day was for the offense. I'm giving Vance McDonald one of my winners. And keep in mind that his mistake was probably right up there with Ben Roethlisberger's as one of the worst of the day. But he did show, besides that one play, that last week was not a fluke for him. Now that he's healthy, we see that McDonald is a legitimate weapon for the offense, and he brings physicality to the party too. I hope to see him continue to get more involved in the offense. On the other side, it's Bud Dupree. On a day where there, again, weren't many winners, I felt like Dupree had a solid day. I actually think he was more disruptive in this game than he even was last week, even though he had a bigger day on the stat sheet and had a pick six. He was in the backfield more often and forcing pressure more often than anyone else did, that's for sure. So now that we've talked about our winners, let's talk about our losers. There's certainly a lot to look at, so who stuck out in a bad way for you?
On offense, there's James Conner. After game one, he just hasn't been able to get anything going on the ground. And whether you blame going down big really quick in the game, run blocking, or him, he's losing no matter how you look at it. I feel like he's been a big loser these past 3 weeks because of how everything is happening. But on defense, it's Terrell Edmonds. He looks terrible. He looks like a third-round pick thrown out there and left to dry. By the week, I get continuously more infuriated. The Steelers took a third-round pick in the first round. And then you just kind of look over and see Jesse Bates is performing like the second best among rookie safeties. And then you look at Darius Leonard, who the Steelers could have had. I mean, he didn't play this Thursday because he was injured, but Darius Leonard leads the league in tackles right now. I mean, he's going to lose it because he didn't play this week, but he's been a disruptive force, and it hurts. The Steelers said, John sent me a tweet today that the Steelers didn't want to reach on a guy with the 28th, and that infuriated me because Terrell Edmonds was one of the biggest reaches I've seen for the Steelers in a while. Like, the only other one recently was Artie Burns, but Artie Burns was a super reach. Artie Burns was probably going in the beginning of the second round. So, he just looks terrible. He looks like a third-round pick to me. Who are your losers for this game?
Well, on offense, it starts with the quarterback. For whatever reason now, we're seeing really streaky play from him, and he's always been kind of a streaky guy, but he's just been even worse the last couple of years. I don't get why it happens, but last year he really struggled out of the gate as well, and he turned it around midseason. It worked out, though. The Steelers made the playoffs and didn't lose many games, but the way this team is going, he may need to turn it around a lot sooner if they want to make the playoffs or have a winning season. The clock is ticking, and he's got to start playing better. The other guy who's got to start playing better is T.J. Watt. You talked about it. He looked like a future star in Week 1 against the Browns, and he has vanished. He's an important part of this defense, and he's got to get going. What are your final thoughts on this game?
I just wanted to add that this is the first game that I felt like the Steelers were getting screwed by the refs. Whether it be that terrible call on James Conner for the crackback block or them missing calls. One of the other ones that really pissed me off was the Ravens had a 12-man on the field penalty. The ref saw it, threw the flag, and picked it up, and then said it wasn't a 12-man on the field because something like they needed to allow time for the substitutions or something really stupid. It was a 12-man on the field penalty that should have been called against, should have been enforced against the Ravens. I was mad. I wasn't happy with the officiating in this one. And like I said, this is the first game where I felt like, the calls didn't go both ways. Calls just went for the Ravens in this one, personally. Do you have anything else to say about this game?
This was just an all-around poor start by both sides, which led to a 14-0 lead. And I know they came back from it, and they've done it before, but you really put yourself at a disadvantage when you come out of the gates like garbage every week. The offense in particular has no excuse for this. Randy Fichtner has got to figure something out quickly because his offenses look terrible on the first couple of drives and sometimes 3 drives of the game when you script the plays, and that's the offensive coordinator's job, by the way. The defense had a horrible start as well, and they were better in the second half, but they weren't good. They played ultra-conservative and got picked apart and gave up some very long drives, and it's true. They were on the field the entire second half thanks to the offense being hot garbage. But if you needed a little more from them in this game, you weren't going to get it. I suppose this was an improvement, though. And just overall, you got to get it together, man. This season could be in jeopardy already over the next few weeks. these types of performances at home is disgusting. It left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. So it's just got to get better. It's desperation time now. And at the most desperate hour, the Steelers have heard from the prodigal son, Le'Veon Bell himself. What is the news with him?
Well, the new word on Bell is that he's showing up week 7, apparently, during the bye week. This news was broke by Jeremy Fowler, who said he talked to Bell himself. I think everyone's taking the same approach to this. We're going to believe it when we see it. I don't know about you, but that's what I'm going with. I know that apparently this was straight. Bell was asked by Jeremy Fowler, and this was his answer. But Bell also said that he wasn't going to hold out longer than he did last year. And we are now going into week 5, and he is not here. So there's that. So I'm going to believe it when I see it. What do you think of this?
I'm in complete agreement with you. For now, it's James Conner and the team we've got here, I guess. So that's all right with me. Around the league, let's take a look at some scores. Just to recap from this week, I was 10-4 in our pick'em section. I'm on fire this year. For whatever reason, last year I was not very good. And for whatever reason, this year I'm doing a pretty good job. Austin had another, not a rough week, I'd say, but for whatever reason, I'm just on fire, and I'm blowing you away, buddy.
I'm telling you, I'm improving every week. Don't worry. By the end of the year, by week 17, I'm going to get every single one right that week. I'm going to have 16-0 that week. I've been getting better every week. Don't you worry. It'll be comeback season.
That is true. Austin has been improving every week, so the margin will be getting, I'm sure it'll get shorter or smaller eventually. Let's go through the games. I think the Patriots are just fine. They absolutely throttled the Dolphins, who were previously unbeaten. Were you really that surprised by that?
I was not surprised. I was a little bit more surprised how many people are sticking up for the Dolphins. They're 3-0. Yeah, okay, but they were not hard teams. And then the Patriots just were looking for a time to turn around. That was basically, I never expected anything less.
A game that I'm sure you paid close attention to, or at least tried to. I was watching pretty closely. The Bengals and Falcons. The Bengals managed to win on the road. This was a pick I flip-flopped at the last moment, and I got right just because I had a bad feeling about the Falcons. And the Falcons are kind of the Steelers' equivalent on the NFC side, and obviously we get to see them next week, and 2 weeks from now we see the Bengals. So kind of an interesting game from start to finish.
Yeah, I hate the Falcons. Isaiah Oliver, what are you doing on that last play? I was so happy. I was like, I'm going to be right. I'm going to be right about this one, even though the Falcons are banged up. And then Isaiah Oliver had absolutely terrible coverage on that last play, allowing the Bengals to win. Why'd you have to do that to me, Sam? Why? But, yeah, that's all I have to say about that game.
And then just like everyone predicted, Mitchell Trubisky threw, 5 touchdown passes against the Buccaneers?
Yep, I think we all saw that coming. I mean, I will say I will take credit for it. I thought that the Bears defense was going to give the Tampa Bay Bucs a problem, and they totally did that. I will take credit for that, but I never saw Mitchell Trubisky literally throttling them with all he had.
Yeah, that was definitely interesting, and the Fitzmagic run is officially over. Jameis Winston set to start their first game out of the bye week in 2 weeks, so rest in peace. What else? The Browns and Raiders. There were several games that nearly ended in a tie. There was the Eagles and Titans, which I think there was 13 seconds left when the Titans scored a touchdown. There was the Texans and Colts, which we can talk about how the Colts absolutely botched that game and cost me a chance at either a tie or potentially winning that game. You know, I was pulling hard for a tie this week, and we didn't get any, but we came close on 3 of them.
We did come close. I'm glad that the Colts botched that because my record would have been so much worse.
The other game was the Browns and Raiders. The Browns looking like they were going to win their first road game in nearly 3 years. Well, they blew the lead, and the Raiders under John Gruden won their first game. John Gruden's first coaching win in 10 years. What were your thoughts on that?
I wasn't happy with the game. There was no defense played, and the Browns' defense was actually pretty solid so far this year. I don't know. I wasn't happy with the game overall. I didn't really watch that much, but Marshawn Lynch is also a legend. I swear, Marshawn Lynch, like, literally, specifically he sees the wide open holes and then looks at the defenders and is like, I'm going to just run over you instead and get the same amount of yards. Marshawn Lynch just wants to hit people, I think. Marshawn Lynch wants to be on defense because, like, he's just so good at smashing people and just keeping running. Age hasn't caught up to him yet. Age hasn't caught up to Marshawn Lynch. I like that. But, yeah.
49ers at Chargers. That was my Eliminator Challenge pick was the Chargers, and they made me really nervous this week. C.J. Beathard all of a sudden looks really good, which I never would have expected.
I think it's just the Chargers, man. I feel like we talk about this every season, but like the Chargers just like manage to keep games close and like blow fourth quarter leads like it's no one's business. I mean, they didn't blow a fourth quarter lead in this one, but like this game was unnecessarily close, and we both got it wrong because it was very unnecessarily close.
Thanks to the arms of Patrick Mahomes, both his left and right hands, the Chiefs defeat the Broncos 27. Was it 27-23?
Yes, it was 27-23.
All right, so they just barely beat the Broncos, who seem to have had the Chiefs figured out, but they left too much time for Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs come away with the win. And the Chiefs now still undefeated. What were your thoughts on Monday Night Football?
That left-handed throw was amazing. Patrick Mahomes, oh my God, man! Like Patrick Mahomes, I think I don't know if we had this conversation or I had this conversation with my Broncos fan friend, but I was telling someone that we haven't really seen like the start of a Favre or Brady or anyone really since, at least not like since I've been a fan. I will openly admit that I didn't really get to see Roethlisberger in the beginning because I wasn't really a fan again in 2004. I didn't become a fan until later. I didn't see like Manning and stuff like that. I didn't get to see them develop from the get-go. Patrick Mahomes might be that like first guy that I could say, all right. I mean, I know I'm dropping shit like really quick because Mahomes just looks incredible right now, and I'm not willing to say he's going to be a Favre yet or a early Michael Vick or something. I'm just saying, like, this might be the first. This is the first time I could say this. I might be seeing this develop into one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But yeah, the only other thing I have to say is Case Keenum lost that game for the Broncos. He had Demaryius Thomas wide open at the end of the game. Would have been a touchdown. Would have put them in for the lead. I can't believe Case Keenum missed that throw. It was just really bad. The Broncos almost should have won this game. I'm kind of disappointed in Case Keenum. I was a little higher on him coming into the season. Just doesn't look as good as he did last year with the Vikings. But yeah, do you have anything to add about this game?
No, I do not. So without further ado, that should wrap up this episode of the Stronger Than Steel podcast. Oh, one last point. We both picked the Patriots to cover. What was the spread?
I actually don't know. I do not know the spread for that game. I didn't actually look.
I thought we picked out what it was. Well, either way, I know we both had the Patriots winning. We'll have to confirm that, but I guess we'll just call that a push because we didn't get to do this episode until later. So for the time being, we'll just keep our records as is right now. So anyways, thank you for joining us today on the Stronger Than Steel podcast. If you have any questions about the show, feel free to email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our website listed in the description below. And as always, thank you for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast.
Check out tscshop.com. Good night.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.